Ladies and gentlemen, Derek Chauvin's case has now reached the Supreme Court. You know, he's been appealing and appealing and appealing, just like Amber Geiger. And if you remember, Amber Geiger's case made it to the Supreme Court, and they flat out refused to even take her case up. They threw it out. So now, here we go again with Derek Chauvin. Ex-police officer convicted in the death of George Floyd to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Mm-mm-mm. Why can't you just serve your time? Why can't y'all just serve your time? The former police officer convicted of second-degree murder in the death of George Floyd will ask the Supreme Court to review his conviction after the Minnesota Supreme Court refused to hear his appeal. The U.S. Supreme Court is asked to look at thousands of cases each year, out of which it agrees to hear a mere fraction. Before it recessed for the summer on June 30th, the nation's highest court had issued 58 opinions in cases argued in the terms that began in October of 2022. The court is scheduled to release orders in ongoing cases on July 24th, August 21st, and September 8th. It could act in a new case. So the new case, Derek Chauvin should not even be considered by the U.S. Supreme Court, but I'm not making these decisions, but he shouldn't. He literally did a public lynching of a black man, George Floyd. Minnesota's Supreme Court dismissed a petition of Derek Michael Chauvin in one sentence order on July 18th without explaining why. This means his conviction of 22 and a half years under state law will remain in effect. Chauvin was asking the Supreme Court to take up his case in May after the Minnesota Court of Appeals rejected his claim that he did not receive a fair trial the month before. Okay, well, what was so unfair about it? Seriously, what was so unfair about it? If anything, you didn't get enough time behind bars, as far as I'm concerned. Chauvin, a white man who was a member of the police force at the time in Minneapolis of March 2020, reportedly knelt on Mr. Floyd's neck more than 9 minutes while he was handcuffed. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. And, you know, we never did hear about that counterfeit $20 bill, right? We haven't heard another peep about it. Because you know why? Because it wasn't counterfeit. Because if it was, you can best believe this media would have brought it up. You know, they will never pass on an opportunity to persecute a black man up in this country. So 5 doctors testified in the trial that the victim died from asphyxia. The local medical examiner, Andrew Baker, who carried out the autopsy, said the use of force was the primary cause of death, but also identified, he had hypertension, um, and they said there were fentanyl there, but, fentanyl did not kneel on his neck, okay? And he was alive before Derek Chauvin unalived him. So fentanyl did not kneel on his neck. So another medical examiner, Dr. David Fowler of Maryland, he testified that Floyd had heart issues. Yes, he did, but those heart issues did not kill him that day. That's very true. He did. He had hypertension. He had heart problems, which is a very common thing in our community. So Chauvin was convicted on April 21st, 2021 of second-degree unintentional murder, third-degree murder, second-degree manslaughter after jurors deliberated for 2 days. So the key issue on which the appeal was based on was whether conducting the trial in the same city that George Floyd was killed in was a concern, that he would not get a fair trial. Isn't that amazing? This man wants a fair trial, but he did not give a fair chance to George Floyd, but he wants everybody to give him one. These people are sick. They are sick in the freaking head. They are sick. So, anyway, the trial generated the most amount of pretrial publicity in history. Well, the only one responsible for that is Derek Chauvin. I don't see how that's anyone else's problem. So, more concerning are they're talking about the protests that occurred nationwide over the killing of George Floyd, you know. So they're just talking about the safety concerns for Derek Chauvin and surrounding the courthouse. Yeah, but y'all did that. Y'all put up fences and barbed wire and everything else, and even had the National Guard troops on alert. I remember because I did the articles and the videos on it. So, what more protection did he want? The city had to spend a fortune because he decided to lynch a black man out in the streets. That's why you had to spend a fortune. So, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison said he was satisfied with the Minnesota Supreme Court's decision to dismiss the appeal. This means that the Court of Appeals was correct in finding that his trial was properly conducted and he was properly convicted under law, Mr. Ellison said in a statement. This development definitely holds Chauvin accountable and closes this chapter of the murder of George Floyd. Chauvin was also convicted of violating a federal criminal civil rights statute arising out of the same events. He was sentenced July of 2022 to 252 months in prison, or 21 years, with credit for time served. All right. So before that, in December of 2021, Chauvin pled guilty in federal court to violating the federal law on two separate occasions. He pled guilty for willfully depriving Mr. Floyd of his constitutional right to be free from the use of unreasonable force by a police officer, resulting in his death. The U.S. Department of Justice said in a statement last year. So we know he also pled guilty to willfully depriving a then 14-year-old child of his constitutional rights to be free from unreasonable force by a police officer, resulting in the child's bodily injury. And when we heard about that happening prior to George Floyd, that actually came up, and because other people came forward that they did not allow during the trial. There were several people that Derek Chauvin had used excessive force on in the same manner that he did to George Floyd. And many of them did want to testify, but they would not allow it. While there's no amount of prison time, it can reverse the tragic consequences of Derek Chauvin's violent actions. We hope that his sentence provides some small measure of justice for the families and communities impacted. So I hope the Supreme Court throw that crap out. Derek Chauvin does not even need the consideration of any court at this point in time. He needs to just shut the hell up and serve his time. I don't feel bad that he's behind bars. I'm glad he is. Who the hell wants this man free? Let him stay behind the bars that he's at. He's in Club Fed. What more does he want? If it was up to me, he would never be free again. Y'all, please tell me what you think about this video. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.